What are the biggest lessons I've learned in the past 9 years of being a stay-at-home mom? And what are my top regrets? Well, today I'm going to share with you those things. I'm going to get really personal and just open up about some things that I have struggled with and some things that I've learned so that hopefully I can be an encouragement to you. So let's go ahead and get started. Welcome to today's episode. I am kind of rebranding this a little bit, and I don't know that maybe rebranding isn't the right term, but I am trying something new here on YouTube, and that is kind of just doing like a podcast style. So I don't think that you have to sit here and watch my face. If you want to just plug in your earbuds or your earphones and just listen, that's all you need to do in this video, because I'm trying something new with YouTube. Back at the beginning of the summer, I was starting to feel just pulled in a lot of different directions. If you only follow me here on YouTube, then you may not know that I also have a blog, queenofthehousehold.com, where I do earn the majority of my income from. And I also have a small Etsy shop. And of course, then I do hear you on YouTube, and it makes a very small income for me. But the problem is it was costing me a lot of time just to film the videos and to edit the videos. And so at the beginning of the summer, I told my husband, I was like, I feel like I'm just being pulled in all these different directions and I can't focus on one thing and do one thing really well. And I said, I'm just feeling stressed. Like I can't do the things with the kids that I want to do. I can't take care of, projects around the house that I wanted to do this summer. And I said, I've got to let go of something. And so we just decided that YouTube was that thing for the summer. And I took some time off. I hope that a lot of you guys took the summer off and just enjoyed doing all the summer things as well. But we're getting back into the swing of homeschooling and all of that next week. And I just took that time away from YouTube, and I realized that the way I was doing it just was not working for me and my family anymore. But I don't want to give up YouTube. I feel like it's a way for me to connect with people. Hearing someone's voice and seeing them too really does make a difference. And so I love podcasts personally. I will listen to them when I'm doing the dishes or cleaning the bathroom. And it's kind of a self-help, like a self-growth thing for me. And then it just helps pass the time as well. So that is what I hope for today's episode, and in the following months I have them planned out what I want to speak about, and they're all ones you can just put your headphones in, listen, and get a lot of information. Hopefully I can be an encouragement to you and also just give you some practical tips. So I hope that you like it. If you do, let me know. If you don't, let me know too. I would just, I'd love to hear your feedback, and we will go ahead and jump right in. Okay, so some of the biggest lessons that I have learned as a stay-at-home mom for the past 9 years. Number one is that mindset is so important. So when I started, my role as a stay-at-home mom, I had gone from working full-time as a teacher and then went to just being at home all the time. And I did not see the value in what I was doing, because before I had a time that I had to be at work and a time that I came home. I had a job description. I had something to get dressed and ready for every single day. I knew exactly what I was doing. I was a teacher, so I had lesson plans, and I felt like I accomplished something important every day. And, I could see the difference that I was making in the kids' lives. I could just see the progress that we were making as we were going through the textbooks throughout the year. And so all of that just made me feel like what I was doing before had purpose, but as a stay-at-home mom, I didn't feel like I had that purpose. And truly, that was a mindset shift that had to happen for me. And I would say, I can't remember exactly when it was, but I think it was sometime about a year-ish into being a stay-at-home mom and feeling miserable, I finally decided that I was going to have to change the way I viewed being a stay-at-home mom, and I was going to have to view it with purpose and figure out what was my role in that season of my life. Because at that time I figured, I'll go back to work, I'll go back to teaching in a couple of years. And I felt like I just did not want to be miserable for the 2 or 3 years that I was at home. And I said, I have to figure out, what I'm doing each day. And so I searched scripture, and I came across a lot of different scriptures that helped me personally. And they're not necessarily like specifically about stay-at-home moms or homemaking, but they're ones that just helped me be content where I was. And so those helped me, and that was just a mindset shift that had to happen for me. And so I feel like every stay-at-home mom, whether you are transitioning from working, or maybe you just got married and had kids right away and you didn't work, but just taking on the role of being a mother and caring for your home, there has to be a mindset where you value what you are doing each day. Okay, so number 2, the second lesson that I learned being a stay-at-home mom is that each day has purpose, even though I'm not leaving the house to go to work. And so along with that kind of mindset shift, I had to realize that I wasn't just going to sit around all day on the couch and scroll Instagram. I needed to have purpose to each day. And so I would get myself ready and dressed each day. I wouldn't just stay in my lounge clothes. And I knew I had like specific things that I was going to do each day. I viewed it as a job instead of just, well, this is just where I'm at in this season of life. No, like I may not have a boss. I may not clock in. I may not get paid, but this is my job. This is what God has called me to do in this season of my life. And so I'm going to do it to the best of my ability. There's a verse in the New Testament. I'll try and leave it in the show notes because I can't think of the reference, but it says, whatever your hand finds to do, do it with all your might. And I realized that I wasn't doing it with all my might. And I needed to view my role as a stay-at-home mom and a homemaker as my job, and realizing that each day I had a job to do. And whether it was in being a homemaker, there's so much that goes along with that. It's not just, cleaning the house and making meals. It's also the time that you spend with your kids, and it's the errands that you run. It's interacting with other people and encouraging other people. And there's just so much that's so involved. It could be even working part-time from home and making a little bit of side income as well. And so when I thought of it as purpose each day, that really helped me as a stay-at-home mom. So which kind of has to do with the mindset shift that I've said in the beginning. So that's number 2. Number 3 was to only compare myself to the person I was yesterday and no one else. Okay, so it's really easy to compare yourself, number 1, to other stay-at-home moms. It's also really easy to compare yourself to who you used to be before you were a stay-at-home mom. And I think that was probably one of my biggest things. I used to kind of feel sorry for myself in a way, because I would think, well, I used to have a job where I would actually like put on makeup and put on nice clothes, and I felt good about myself, and I felt like I had that purpose. And so I would compare myself to who I was 8-9 months ago instead of to who I am right now. And I should have never done that. And I had to learn to stop comparing myself to that person who I was. Instead, I had to compare myself to, am I a better version of myself today than I was yesterday? And that's when I started actually taking care of myself and putting on a little bit of makeup each day and getting dressed in clothes that made me feel good, and being productive around the house and going out and seeing how I could help other people in the community, and spending more time with my son instead of just, watching TV or something like that. I was being more intentional with my time and my life. And that made such a big difference when I just stopped comparing myself to who I used to be. Also, comparing myself to other moms. So I used to do the same thing with just other either working moms or even stay-at-home moms, and I would just think, oh, they've got it all together. They're so much better than I am. They're healthier than I am. They're more patient than I am. They, do all the better. They have a better home and all these things. And I really had to stop that. And I still have to remind myself that I'm not comparing myself to anyone except for myself. And I have to stop my thoughts and be like, okay, this is not getting you anywhere where you want to be. Stop, thinking about where you think you fall short because someone else does well in another area, and instead just think, okay, am I making steps closer to who I want to be? Am I better at such and such area of my life today than I was yesterday? And that makes a huge difference. I'm kind of seeing a theme here. So that was number 3, and that is, all 3 of them have been about my mind. And it's really not really actions as much as it is what goes on in my head. And it's so true that what we do with our lives starts with our minds. And every action that you do has a thought that precedes it. And so it's so important that we keep those thoughts in check, and we know that we are just making sure that the thoughts that we think are positive and true. It kind of reminds me of another verse. I think it's in Philippians 4:8, where it says that whatever is true, whatever is lovely, whatever is good report, and there's a few other things, that's the things that we're supposed to be thinking on, not thinking about how we fall short, and not thinking about how we compare to someone else, or not thinking about woe is me. So anyways, mindset is a big thing. Okay, so that was number 3. Number 4, now we're going to get into some practical things that we can do. Number 4 is routines are essential. This was an important lesson that I learned. I think my son was around 18 months old when I finally started following a bedtime routine with him, and I started following a morning routine. And that was literally life-changing for me, because up until then, I really didn't get very good sleep. But when I finally started following routines for my son and then routines for myself, I started sleeping at night, and it was amazing. But even before that, not just like a morning and evening routine, but even just like daily routines, just having a kind of, it's not really a schedule, because I'm not like writing in the times exactly, but it's just like a plan. Basically, you're making a plan for your day, and you're not just like sitting around not doing anything with your day, or wondering what should we do next type deal. One of the first routines that I started with was super simple. And if you're new to routines, I would just say pick one thing. Don't even think of like evening routine or morning routine, because then I think what we do is we like try to pack in like 10 different things in our routine, and then it's too much and we give up. So start with one thing. The one thing for me was doing my dishes every single night. And I started this way back when I was watching YouTube. I was watching How Jen Does It, and she challenged everyone to wash their dishes, clean up their sink, and clean up after dinner for 1 whole month. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to do this challenge, because I know that I need to do this challenge. Every morning I used to walk into my kitchen and my sink would be full of dishes, and I would just hate having to try and find a bowl that was clean so that I could eat cereal in the morning, and because I'm half asleep anyways, and it was just so annoying. And so I knew that I needed to do this challenge. And so for an entire month, I washed my dishes every single night after dinner and cleaned up the kitchen. Even on nights when I didn't want to, I just kept thinking about that challenge. And it was amazing. I loved how it felt to walk into a clean kitchen the next day. And after a month, I was like, I am never going back to a dirty kitchen at night. It is worth getting up after dinner and just cleaning everything up. It only takes 20 minutes, sometimes 30 minutes if it's a big mess. But if I've been keeping up with it throughout the day, it takes 20 minutes or less to clean up. And it's just an amazing feeling to go to bed with a clean kitchen every single night, and then to wake up with it in the morning is amazing as well. And so if you are feeling like overwhelmed with routines and you've just never really, just overwhelmed with housework and things like that, I always say start with your dishes. Okay, and so then the last lesson that I learned as a stay-at-home mom, that was, I think, the biggest lesson that I needed to learn, was to write down all of my essential tasks. So I didn't really know like what all was involved with homemaking, and I really needed like a list that I could refer to and know, okay, every day I need to do this, and every week this needs to be accomplished, and every month this needs to be accomplished. And so that's what I started doing. I started using a planner, and I just started writing everything down so that I didn't have to keep it in my head, because there's so much that's involved in managing a home, and it's really hard to keep it all straight in your head. And so something that really helps me is just writing it down. And especially when you have kids and different things that go along with all that, you have to write it down. You just will not remember everything. And so sometimes too, as a stay-at-home mom, you don't know exactly what you're supposed to do, like what all is included in running a home. And so I had to really think through everything, like every single room and every day, and what were the things that I needed to accomplish so that I wouldn't forget them. And I do have a free resource for you. It's I will link it below, but it's called the Balanced Mom Checklist, and it's a checklist of things to do every day and every week to take care of your home, for meal planning, and then just also being a mother and getting in that time, that quality time that you need with your kids. And it's really simplified. It's kind of like a quick start guide for stay-at-home moms, and thousands of moms have signed up for it and received it, and it's helped a lot of women. So I will leave that link below. But those are all of the lessons that I have learned as a stay-at-home mom. Now I want to share with you 3 of my regrets from the past 9 years. And some of them I'm a little embarrassed about, but we're going to go for it. So, I'm like, should I share these? And then I was like, you know what? I'm just going to, because I'm sure there's some mom on here who could relate and may need to hear that she is not the only one that struggles with these. So my number 1 regret was understanding my kids at each stage. So I should rephrase that and say not understanding my kids at each stage of their development. And I think sometimes you have to go through it to really understand it. And this is especially something that I struggled with my firstborn. And that was just understanding that he's a 3-year-old boy, and 3-year-old boys act a certain way. And I think sometimes I just didn't understand that, and I didn't know how to deal with the emotions that were coming from a 3-year-old. I didn't know how to deal with the energy that he had, and he couldn't communicate very well to me. And so I just really struggled with having patience especially when they were younger. And when they're a baby, it's one thing, but then they get into that toddler stage. And 2-year-old wasn't too bad, but 3-year-old is when it really was really hard for me. 3, 4, and 5. 3, 4, and 5 were the ages that I really struggled with as a mom. And I felt like I did not have the patience for my kids like I wanted to. And now I see some younger kids, and I'm I have a couple of nieces and a nephew that are younger, and I see them and I'm like, yeah, they're so little, they're just babies. And I think I was expecting too much from my children. But that's a lesson that I have learned. And now that they're a little older, I still have to remind myself, they are kids. They are not to a certain maturity level. They have not experienced all of the things. This is why they're asking these questions. This is why they are acting in this certain way. And I need to have that patience with them. But that is just one regret that I have, just not having the patience and understanding for the stage that they were at, especially when they were younger. All right, regret number 2, and this is probably the most embarrassing and the one that I wish I could change the most. And that is that I used to yell at my kids. And I was a yeller. They would not do something, or they would do something I didn't want them to do, and I would yell. Especially, I remember it was more like I said, 3 years old was the age that was really, really hard for me, and especially with my firstborn. And I just came to a point where I just found myself yelling whenever I would get frustrated, or when he wouldn't do the things that I wanted him to do. And I think we dropped naps at that point, and so I didn't have a lot of free time, whereas before with naps, I could kind of take a break. I could have time to myself. And so I think I was kind of not taking care of myself. Plus I was pregnant and I got really sick with my second born. And then I just didn't have the patience that I needed, kind of like the other regret that I had, not understanding and being patient with them or with him at the stage that he was in. And so I knew I had this problem, and I could probably do a whole episode where I talk about how I fixed my yelling and the anger issues that I was dealing with. But one of the things that I did was I found a book by Annie Chapman. She is the wife to the Christian music guy named Stephen Curtis Chapman. And she wrote a book, and I forget what it's called. I wish I could remember. I think it was something about anger, and it was Anger for Moms, and I will leave it linked below. But it was such a good book, and it was very convicting, but at the same time it was encouraging, because I was like, oh, someone else had the same issue that I was dealing with. And it was also super practical. It gave me all these tips on how I could stop yelling and stop being so angry. And so I think I read that around this time in 2019. And I needed that book. And so I used that book. I think it was like around August, September, like early fall. And so I worked on it throughout the fall. And then in January 2020, I was like, my resolution for this next year is going to be no yelling. Just a whole year, I don't yell at anyone. My kids, my husband, like no one. And I did it. I did it for a whole year. And it was hard. It was really hard. But reading that book, and then just like I had kind of slowly worked on it in the fall earlier, had kind of helped me change my habits, because that's really what it is. It was just a habit of reaction to just yell whenever something would happen that I wasn't happy with. And so I had to change my reaction and stop myself from that bad habit. It was just a terrible, terrible habit. And I wish I just go back and I just think about, like, why couldn't I have just been a little more patient or understanding? And I wish I could take those times back when I yelled. I really do. And I think there's probably other moms that feel the same way. And, there was a few years when I wish I could change it. I can't go back and change it, but I can, like I said earlier, I can compare myself to who I was yesterday. And that's what I'm going to compare myself to. And that's who I'm going to try and be better, instead of just thinking about replaying the old things that I don't want to repeat. So anyways, that's my second regret. Okay, my third and final regret, which I probably could come up with some more, but these are like my big regrets, is spending so much time on social media, especially in those early years. I think it really started because, okay, if we go back and think about before I became a stay-at-home mom, I was working. And so I wasn't on social media a whole lot because I was running a classroom and I just had other things to do with my time. But when you're at home and no one is telling you what to do, it's so easy to just sit on the couch and scroll your phone and watch endless videos and reels and all the things. And what really did it for me was in those early years when I was first nursing my son, I'd be sitting there for 20 minutes or so, and I would have my phone in my hand and I would just watch these videos and I would scroll. But then when I was done nursing him, I would still sit there and I would still be holding my little baby, but I would still be scrolling on my phone. And it was a really bad habit. And I found myself doing that all the time, like every day, and wasting so much time. And so I just wish that I could go back and say, okay, put your phone down and don't worry about other people's lives, because that's another thing that when I was constantly on social media, I was comparing myself to other people, even people I didn't even know. And so that is one thing that I wish I could go back and kind of change. Now, right at this time, I don't have Instagram. I don't plan on ever getting back on Instagram. It was such a waste of time for me, and I never knew what to post anyways. and I'm not like dissing anyone who has Instagram. If you have it, cool. If it works for you. For me, it didn't work because I just did not have the self-control to like put my phone down after an hour of watching, stories or whatever it was, reels. And so anyway, so I had to just get rid of Instagram altogether. And then my Facebook, I have a joint account with my husband, but my husband, it's his thing. He does it mostly. I'm on there every once in a while, but it's just not really appealing to me. And so I don't get on Facebook a whole lot. I think the one thing that I do struggle with sometimes is YouTube Shorts. And so I will delete the YouTube app off of my phone because sometimes I'll just like sit there if I'm like really tired, especially in the afternoon or something, if we've had a really busy morning or we've been out and like had a play date or something, sometimes those just drain me. And so, I love doing them, but just as an introvert, they really drain me. And so I'll find that I will resort to social media or just screen time in general. And then I will waste time. But I'm so much better at it than I used to be, and I will catch myself. And sometimes I'll just allow myself to just chill and relax for a little while. But it's not like it's going for 2 hours at a time like it used to. And so that is definitely a big regret that I have from those early years. And I feel like I could have spent more time being productive around my home and just spending time with my kids more and, looking into their eyes and playing with them and reading more books. So I'm trying to make up for that now. I feel like I'm doing a better job at it now, but, some of this is just lessons learned. Some of it comes with age and just experience. I've been at this for 9 years now, which is kind of hard for me to believe. I never thought that I would be a stay-at-home mom for this long. I really thought that it would just be a couple of years. My kids would go into preschool. I would go back to teaching. I didn't think the stay-at-home mom, homemaker life was for me. And God just really worked on me in that first couple of years. And now it's like my passion. And I love what I'm able to do. And I see the purpose in home and family and this season of my life. And so I hope that has been an encouragement to you. Hopefully it has been something that is relatable and all of that. So I will leave a link below if you want to check out that free resource that I have. I also have, so that free resource is a 3-page instant download. You can print it out and use it right away. It's kind of like a quick start guide. I also have another guidebook that is 37 pages and it's called Successful Stay-at-Home Mom. And it is on my Etsy shop. I'll leave a link to that as well. But a lot of moms have found that super helpful just to kind of give them a refresh. And for some of them who are kind of in a slump with being a stay-at-home mom, or others who are new to the role of stay-at-home mom and just don't know what to do because there is no real like guidebook out there that tells you what you're supposed to do. But this is it. This is a guidebook that tells you what to do. So I will leave that linked below as well. I hope that you enjoyed this. I hope that you maybe were able to get something done and listen. And I have so many of these episodes ready to go. I have them all outlined. I just, have to film them and then I will upload them. But let me know what you think. Do you like this style? Do you not? And yeah, I'm thankful for each one of you following along and listening, and I will see you in the next one. Bye for now.